Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of This Week in Mappercraft, and Happy Easter! This past week was March 29th to April 4th, and we'll be covering the years of 2015, 2016, 2017, 2020, and 2021. As always, all information here can be found on the Mappercraft wiki, which is linked in the description along with the server itself. Let's go over the years. In 2015, the server was running Panegia World by Monsoon Jr. In 2016, the server was running Panegia World Revived, also under Monsoon Jr. In 2017, the server was running Amplified World under Xenodyne. In 2020, the server was running Solace World 2 under Solace. And in 2021, the server was running VMJ World under Multi. Let's get started. First, we have several events from the end of March and beginning of April 2015 during Panegia World. On the 29th, player data was accidentally wiped for a second time. This was something that happened a few times during the first year of the server when it was being hosted locally and not via a hosting service. They called it the Creeper Reaping, and it would wipe everybody's inventories, which was obviously a bit of a big deal. Here's the quote about it. Then on the 31st, FedEx became the first ever player to defeat the Ender Dragon and see the credits on Mappercraft. Here's the proof for that one. Pretty impressive considering everybody's inventories had been wiped just 2 days ago. Also on the 31st, a Hyrenian embassy to Zanzibar was built, strengthening the relations between the two nations. According to the quote, it was built on the island of Pemba. Next couple of days were relatively uneventful until the 3rd of April, when the expansion era ended and the destruction era began, which was defined by more conflicts, which destroyed some of the progress made by nations in the previous week. There's the quote for that. And we can see more events from that era on this slide, with 4 events from April 3rd to April 4th. They're actually all on the 3rd, but whatever. First, the Diamond War occurred when FedEx stole some diamonds from Ondrantium as a joke. The war quickly ended when Monsoon realized it was just a prank and made peace. However, according to the quote, FedEx didn't accept this, and thus began the next event, which was also on the 3rd. The Great War, also known as the First Coalition War. Essentially, this was a conflict between Hyrenia and Ondrantium when FedEx took some sort of prisoner and raided Ondrantium. Several other nations attempted to assist them, but were unsuccessful, according to the quote here. One of the primary reasons for this war was apparently that Gaelic, the player, was suspected of using a modded client and thus cheating. The war ended when Monsoon surrendered, and players attempted to repair the nation afterwards. Following the war, possibly during it, Brabantium and Caravor merged into the Kentark. According to the quote, the members of Caravor settled in Brabant's lands, and they kind of were peaceful, I guess. Finally, for the last event of the week in 2015, we have the Zanzibar terrorist attacks, when an unknown griefer specifically destroyed the homes of certain players in Zanzibar when everyone else was off the line. Hyrenia, Zanzibar themselves, and Ondrantium met for a world meeting to discuss the culprit, and they ultimately laid the blame on Java Sea. According to the quote, this led to Zanzibar and Hyrenia forming a formal alliance, and also Zanzibar moving their territory much further away to avoid conflict, as well as their eventual rename to Stoneholm at the end of the original Panegia. But next up, we have only 2 events from March 29th to April 4th, 2016 during Panegia World Revived. First, on the 31st, the server updated to 1.9.2, which is always kind of a notable event. Here's the quote. A few days later, the Harbrantine Stoneholmic War officially ended, which had begun on March 22nd, and it ended on the 3rd, April 3rd. After the Cocaine War last week, Harbrant became less stable, and many members left to form their own nations and city-states. According to the quote, some members of Stoneholm kind of continued the conflict, I guess, although a ceasefire was declared, and fighting basically finished by the 3rd. Panegia World revived became increasingly inactive after this point. Next up, we have a single event from March 29th to April 4th, 2017 during Amplified World. On the 30th of March, Valhalla finally rejoined the Rechonian Republic, finally unifying the group of veteran players which had been split up by staff at the beginning of the world. Here's the quote for that, but that is the only thing for this world, so we're going to move on. And next up, we have two events from March 29th to April 4th of 2020 during Solace World 2. First, on the 30th, Batavia was annexed by England when their leader temporarily left the server. England started to become sort of a major player in international politics due to this and other later events. Here's the quote about it, though. Then, on the 1st of April, the Angevin Empire was formed as a merger between France, England, and the returning members of Batavia. This was one of the leading members of the European Council when it was eventually formed later in the world, although for now it simply acted as sort of another minor nation in Europe like Iberia and Italy. Here's the quote, and that marks the end of the week for Solace World 2. And finally, for our last world, we have 4 events from March 29th to April 4th, 2021 during VMJ World. First, on the 30th, we have the Portuguese Taiats War, which was a continuation of the Portuguese Wars of Aggression, where Portugal attacked a handful of basically random nations. Taiats was weak and not particularly well liked internationally, so they were quickly annexed, as seen in the quote. Then, on the 1st of April, Naraka declared independence from Zhongguo with the permission of the emperor, as the members of that area didn't want to be connected to such a large and dominant nation. This can be seen in the quote here. Also on the 1st, the Hawaiian-Portuguese War occurred, finally putting an end to the Portuguese aggression when Hawaii, backed up by a coalition of international volunteers, invaded and defeated Portugal. This led to Hawaii gaining the territory of all of the former Portuguese conquests, and they proceeded to sort of give out land to several different nations to curry international favor. According to the quote, though, the main builds of Portugal were completely destroyed, so this territory was probably not particularly valuable. Following that war, on the 2nd, the First Valhallan Irkastin War occurred between when the Socialist Union of Irkastir declared war on Valhalla due to their former support of Madagascar. According to the quote, Valhalla became a vassal after the short battle, although there would be another war in the future between the two sides, which is why this is called the First War. But that marks the end of VMJ World. And this marks the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out the server at the link in the description. As always, if you have any additional information about any of these events, leave a comment down below or go ahead and add it to the Mappercraft wiki. See you next week for April 5th to the 11th.